Next, on Currents News, she's known as the Pope's favorite nun. Sister Norma Pimentel is in our area with a powerful message about the newcomer.
He didn't get a whole lot done. He had stop and frisk.
A wild debate with Mike Bloomberg as everyone's favorite target. But top issues for Catholics were mostly ignored. This is how the workday begins at a very special cafe. The co-owners are on a mission motivated by their Catholic faith. Plus, the flu is on a second wave and school kids are facing big risks. The news starts right now.
They're devastated. They're really hurting.
The migrants at the U.S. border with Mexico are the people Sister Norma is championing. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. The nun, who's admired by the Holy Father for her passionate support of newcomers, has come to New York. She's on a mission in our area to ensure a new generation is aware of the plight migrants face coming to America. Currents News' Emily Druby reports from the Bronx.
Every day, Sister Norma Pimentel fights the surging humanitarian crisis at our southern border.
People are there in the thousands.
Now she's in our area, recruiting a new generation to help bring justice to migrants. Speaking at the Catholic Manhattan College in the Bronx, Sister Norma shared with students her firsthand experiences at the border, including the plight of a woman denied asylum.
And she said, what am I going to do? I can't go back because my husband was killed, and if I go back, I know my daughter and I will be killed.
Several students say they were inspired to come hear Sister Norma speak because of the time they spent at the border, time they'll never forget.
Having to cut the women out of their jeans because they had the ankle monitors on was really hard. It was like they were treated like animals a little bit.
Anna Rosario has spent time in both El Paso and Brownsville, Texas, motivated to get involved because it could have been her.
So I'm from Latin America, and I can imagine that if my story was different, I would have been one of these migrants.
Ireland Twiggs was also in Brownsville. She recalls the emotional toll it took to cross back into the U.S. from Mexico.
And it was literally 500 feet from this concept of freedom. I think was really hard for me to understand how we could keep going that 500 feet and these people could not.
Sister Norma met with both Anna and Ireland. Their passion is the reason she travels the country to raise awareness for an issue she says doesn't get enough attention.
It has been kind of swept under the carpet and pretend like the problem is not here anymore because it was moved to the south of the border.
In the Bronx, Emily Druby, Currents News.
President Trump is in Las Vegas today in the wake of all the Democratic fireworks at last night's debate. The chief executive appearing at the Hope for Prisoners graduation. The ceremony for more than 24 ex-offenders taking place at the city's police headquarters. Tomorrow, Trump is planning a campaign rally at the Las Vegas Convention Center. He's in town grabbing attention as the Democrats who want to replace him compete in the Nevada caucus. Meanwhile, the gloves came off in last night's Democratic debate in Las Vegas, and it was the new guy who took most of the heat, former New York City Mayor Mike Bloomberg.
I'm running because so many people.
This wasn't the only moment of excitement during the debate. The candidates took the stage in Las Vegas ready to battle. The target, Mike Bloomberg.
A billionaire who calls women fat broads and horse-faced lesbians. And no, I'm not talking about Donald Trump. I'm talking about Mayor Bloomberg.
From his past comments about women to his support for stop and frisk while mayor of New York City, the jabs came from everywhere.
He didn't get a whole lot done. He had stop and frisk, throwing close to 5 million young black men up against the wall.
It was the first debate Bloomberg has qualified for.
I actually welcomed Mayor Bloomberg to the stage. I thought that he shouldn't be hiding behind his TV ads.
He spent millions on ads focused on Super Tuesday and has been accused of trying to buy the nomination.
We shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out.
But Bloomberg says he's the best person to take on President Donald Trump, not the current frontrunner, Senator Bernie Sanders.
We got more union support than you have ever dreamed of.
If he goes and is the candidate, we will have Donald Trump for another 4 years, and we can't stand that.
Even President Trump was talking about Bloomberg last night at a Keep America Great rally in Arizona.
I hear he's getting pounded tonight. You know he's in a debate. I hear they're pounding him.
The Nevada caucus is this Saturday. So it was definitely a made-for-TV debate. A few different topics were discussed, but some were just ignored. Here to break down the issues important to Catholics is St. John's University political expert Brian Brown. Brian, welcome. And I want to start with what the bishops have called the preeminent issue for Catholics, abortion. Surprisingly, nobody brought it up last night. Is this a bad sign for the pro-life movement?
Well, there's not a lot of difference among the candidates on the Democratic Party, and they really reflect the platform of the DNC, which is abortion on demand. So you can see why it wouldn't be mentioned in a debate.
All right, one thing they did talk about was immigration, specifically the Dreamers, and the Pope and the Church have been fighting for their rights, especially Bishop DiMarzio, who is an internationally recognized expert on migration and immigration. What was said at the debate last night?
Well, there was a lot of conversation about attacking some of the candidates in the Senate who voted for President Trump's border nominee and voted for judges who have the endorsement of President Trump and the Republican Party. Immigration is a big issue. It's a big issue in urban areas. Nevada is a very diverse state with the majority Latino population, unlike the other states that we've seen thus far in the primary process. So issues like immigration are critical to voters.
All right, and there's a new ad released by Joe Biden talking about his Catholic faith. So let's listen into that a little bit.
For me, my religion is just an enormous sense of solace. I go to Mass and I say the Rosary. I find it to be incredibly comforting.
Now, Biden hasn't really been highlighting his faith before this point. Why do you think he's doing that now?
Well, I think, Joe Biden has a lot of ground to make up, and this is probably an appeal to not just Catholic voters, but people of all faiths. Joe Biden is someone who's worn his Catholic identity on his sleeve throughout his political career. It's just his voting record does not fall in line with the Catholic Church. So it's almost like a constant conflict, but he certainly is someone who demonstrates the ability to talk about faith personally, and I think that was an appeal to voters.
All right, let's talk about Mike Bloomberg now, the former mayor. He was definitely under attack last night. Now, not many of his stances have been highlighted this election season. This was his first debate. Is he someone that Catholic voters should be paying attention to?
Well, he had a tough night last night. He certainly was in the line of fire, and I think his money will keep him in the race as long as he wants. He hasn't been on a debate stage in like 10 years, and he looked like a little disinterested. He found himself defending ideas like capitalism and where he made his money. He seemed a little unprepared on some big issues that New Yorkers are familiar with, like stop and frisk and some of the sexual harassment issues that have taken place at his company. But voters are going to have to get to know Mike Bloomberg a little better. We as New Yorkers know him, but he has a lot of ground to make up on the campaign, but his resources and money will help buy that attention.
Now, Senator Elizabeth Warren came out swinging right off the bat. Do you think that was good for her? How do you think she did in the debate last night?
I think she did well, and she needed a good debate because she's been struggling not just in the primary results, but in the debates as well. She came out swinging. She really was attacking basically everyone on the stage. Her and Bernie are really competing for a lot of the same voters, but she had a good night. She certainly came after Mayor Bloomberg hard. And scored a lot of hits on him, and we'll see if she can maintain that momentum when the people go to the polls.
And what do you think about Bernie Sanders? Do you think he's keeping that lead after last night?
Well, it'll be interesting. There's a lot of Super Tuesday is going to be a big day, and that's the first time Mayor Bloomberg will be on the ballot. Bernie is still, it seems, the front runner, but again, the Democratic Party is having a real identity crisis, and socialism, whether it's socialism or what Bernie says, democratic socialism, does not appeal to a lot of voters in the Democratic Party. So that could be a tough sell come November.
All right, it'll be interesting to watch. St. John's University political science professor Brian Brown, thanks so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
President Trump's former campaign advisor Roger Stone is being sentenced to jail after he received a term of more than 3 years in prison. He left a Washington courthouse to find a raucous scene outside. Reporters and others shouting at him without any response in return. Stone is vowing to appeal the sentence. Originally, federal prosecutors had recommended a jail term of up to 9 years. That set off a dispute between President Trump and Attorney General William Barr. Trump loudly complained the Justice Department was being too harsh. Barr said the president's tweets about federal cases made his job impossible. There's a new chief of U.S. intelligence tonight, at least for now. Richard Grenell will be the acting director of the nation's vast intelligence community. He'll be the first openly gay man to serve in the president's cabinet. But Grenell doesn't want the job on a permanent basis, so he'll remain U.S. ambassador to Germany, a post he's had for almost 2 years. Meanwhile, in Germany, a terror attack that left 9 people dead was likely driven by a hatred of immigrants. Cops are saying a 43-year-old German went on a rampage, opening fire in heavily migrant neighborhoods in a suburb of Frankfurt. The violence occurred in restaurants popular with Kurdish and Turkish communities. Early this morning, a raid on the suspect's apartment found him and his mother dead inside. The Diocese of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, has filed for bankruptcy. The move comes after a change in state law opened the door to new lawsuits alleging clergy sexual abuse from years ago. The filing allows the diocese to keep its main ministries going while resolving its debts. Harrisburg is the first diocese in Pennsylvania to take the step since a grand jury report on abuse was released a year and a half ago. There's a lot more news headed your way. We'll take you to the Cafe with No Limits. They're serving up kindness. The co-owner's Catholic faith is behind it all. There's a coronavirus connection with New York that involves a child. The little girl is now locked down in the epicenter of the outbreak. School kids are at risk tonight as the flu in the United States is about to bring a second wave. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. That's Haley. She's on the job at the New Jersey Cafe where workers are finding there are no limits on what they can do. And that's the name of the restaurant, the No Limits Cafe. A husband and wife team own the place, and their Catholic faith is why workers are finding nothing can hold them back. As Currents News' Jessica Easthope reports, every day at the No Limits Cafe gets off to an energetic start.
This is how the day starts for employees at No Limits Cafe. They call it the pump-up session. But that's not the only thing that makes the restaurant unique. It only employs adults with intellectual disabilities.
Our mission is to give people with intellectual disabilities meaningful employment and to empower them.
Stephanie Cartier is the co-founder of No Limits Cafe. She and her husband Mark decided to use their own experiences as motivation to make a much-needed change in their community.
Our daughter Katie has Down syndrome. She's our third child, and you can stay in the school system until you're 21 in the United States. So when she was 18, we said, okay, what's going to happen?
Cartier said she and her husband are blessed to have Katie, and it was their Catholic faith that called them to help others just like her.
What would you like to drink?
Employees take orders, prep food, and serve, and they're all doing it for their own reasons. Some love the independence.
It's the first job that I can do stuff all by myself.
And some do it to feel a sense of purpose.
It makes me feel like there is something that I can actually do now.
No Limits Cafe is dedicated to training its current employees to work in the restaurant industry. But come the fall, when the cafe closes its doors for the night, it will open a world of possibilities for others with intellectual disabilities.
Our training academy, which will be at night, hopefully in the fall, will train others with intellectual disabilities that don't work here.
Right now, you need a reservation to eat at the cafe, but walk-ins will soon be welcomed. Order up. Showing customers willing to sit down for a delicious meal just how successful these people can be.
If somebody right now has a baby with special needs, by the time they're old enough to work or graduate school, hopefully we will not be in need of a restaurant like this.
In Red Bank, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Now for the latest on the coronavirus crisis, 2 passengers on the Diamond Princess cruise ship have died. The outbreak among hundreds of people on board forced a quarantine in Yokohama, Japan. Many Americans have been ferried back to the States where they're still being kept in isolation. And in South Korea, nearly 50 people are confirmed infected with the disease. All are linked to a church congregation. The outbreak is in the city of Daegu, and the mayor is urging all 2.5 million residents to stay indoors. Amid the virus outbreak, flu cases in the United States are increasing by the millions, and a second wave is said to be coming. According to the CDC, more than 26 million people have become sick, and about 14,000 have died since the season started in September. This year, the disease has been really tough on school kids, especially if they haven't been vaccinated. Doctors say it's not too late to get a flu shot. Meanwhile, at the epicenter of the coronavirus outbreak, the city of Wuhan, is a toddler from New York. She's living with her grandmother on lockdown, unable to leave their apartment, while her parents here in the city are desperate to bring her home. David Culver has the story from Shanghai.
Gui Zhenqian gave us a video chat tour of her Wuhan apartment. It only took a few seconds to show us the small space where she has spent the past 20-plus days, unable to leave her home as part of the latest Wuhan lockdown measures.
Since the lockdown, I've been really rationing my food so it will last longer.
The local government has allowed for grocery delivery, but Guizhen fears opening her windows and doors could mean exposure to the novel coronavirus. She's not only protecting her own health, but also that of her 2-year-old granddaughter, Felicity.
I'm looking after this baby, and the floors above and below me have confirmed coronavirus cases.
Felicity is a U.S. citizen. Guizhen's been raising her granddaughter as the little girl's parents are living and working in New York City. But amid the outbreak and extreme lockdown, Felicity's mother is desperately trying to get the pair out of Wuhan.
I'm afraid I cannot see my daughter again. I think if they are affected, I think they will be dead.
Fearing the worst, Amanda Zhang is pleading with the U.S. Embassy to grant her mother-in-law, a Chinese citizen, a visa so she can accompany the toddler back to the U.S. In the meantime, she has started stockpiling supplies in her New York City apartment, hoping to ship them to Wuhan.
We want to send all these masks to my families, to my relatives, and donate some to the hospitals.
But she has struggled to find a carrier to deliver within the lockdown zone. Back inside Guizhen's apartment, the 61-year-old admits she's relied on cartoons to help keep Felicity entertained.
If it wasn't for Peppa Pig, there'd be no way I could look after her.
But there's an added fear for Guizhen. She says she's also battling thyroid cancer and worries she might be more susceptible to contracting the coronavirus.
If I get sick with this pneumonia, I have no idea what I would do with this child.
Again, that was David Culver reporting. The U.S. Embassy in China is aware of the case, but says resolving it is complicated because of logistics problems in Wuhan. Still to come on Currents News, online ideas on what to give up for Lent. You don't have much time to decide. The season starts next week. And she found a lot of money, and then a woman listened to God on what to do next. Stories of heartbreak, exploitation, and triumph. Tonight, join us for a Currents News special, Human Trafficking Exposed. Exclusive interviews and an in-depth look at the hidden epidemic happening around the world and right here in New York City. That's tonight at 8 p.m. right here on Net TV. Next week is Ash Wednesday, the start of Lent. It's a time of penance, prayer, and sacrifice. But what to sacrifice? It's a question Catholics face every year as they make their way through the 40-day season leading up to Christ's crucifixion and resurrection. There are some suggestions online. A researcher has looked at thousands of tweets and came up with the things many Catholics intended to do away with. In first place, leaving social networking behind for the 40 days. A close second was giving up Twitter for Lent. Then came some traditional sacrifices, alcohol and chocolate. Those results have been stable over the last couple of years. Helping to minister to God's people is the Catholic Foundation for Brooklyn and Queens. The nonprofit raises millions of dollars to address the needs of the faithful across the diocese. Joining me now is the new chairman of the board for the organization, Sam Ramonzo. And welcome, Sam. Now, you've been a faithful member of the Diocese of Brooklyn for 30 years. What made you want to give back to the diocese in this way?
Well, I got to tell you, it all begins as stewardship, right? Mm-hmm. That's that whole journey. And so it's been a whole journey from the parish through the running ACA to getting involved and being invited to be on the board and seeing the good that it was doing. And it just continued to grow. I've been involved in the finance committee, and now they've asked me to nominate me and voted me in to be the chairman. So I hope I do a good job.
Very exciting. And as I mentioned, the Catholic Foundation raises millions of dollars. Can you break down who that money helps, where it goes?
Well, so it's a very interesting thing. So we basically administer the monies from the ACA, so all of those case work that goes on, the $10 million that gets distributed there, and that goes across for vocations and for priests, and now recently for this coming year for youth ministry. But at the same time, we also administer about $60 million in endowment funds and give out about $3 million annually in grants, and that covers so many things for elderly in the diocese, elderly priests, vocations, education for the lay. And small community grants for a lot of the parishes that ask for some small little things. We give out a number of small community grants.
Wow. And what do you hope to accomplish in the organization?
Well, we're going to do a number of things, right? We have to now shift. Like any organization, we have to grow with what goes on in the diocese, right? The diocese has some challenges, but if you go out across our parishes, it's tremendous energy out there, tremendous vibrancy. So what we're going to do is we're going to shift, and we're going to make sure that we're supporting our parishes more directly. So some reorganization where there's a lot more parish support going directly with field representatives that are going to support them. We're going to continue to grow in supporting youth ministry. And now, as they're going to announce with the ACA, it's going to be one of the case components for the ACA, which will help ensure that further growing of that. And we'll continue to work on all of our lay leaders, developing those leadership, doing development work, education, and all of that stuff. So we're really going to pivot into that at the same time of adjusting to how we raise money, because donors are changing, what their needs are changing, and the way they give are changing. So we're going to pivot to support all of that.
Wow, exciting stuff ahead. Thank you for joining us, the new chairman of the board for the Catholic Foundation for Brooklyn and Queens, Sam Ramonzo. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
A Good Samaritan faced temptation. She made a discovery some people dream about. Katrina Thomas found an envelope inside more than $5,000 in cash. She picked it up off the floor at the Lexington, Kentucky store where she works. She didn't think twice about what to do next because she knew what God wanted.
God put me to put it back. He was the one that directed me to give it back.
The rightful owner of the lost cash was so grateful and sent Katrina candy, flowers, and a card saying, "God bless you." And finally tonight, a sweet sight at the Vatican. A picture captured the moment a man in the Pope's audience planted a long kiss on the Holy Father's forehead. Pope Francis appeared to be smiling when the man pulled his head toward him for the kiss that lasted several seconds. No word on who the man is. He was seated in the front row, which is reserved for sick or disabled people. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thanks for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.